Powered by Riverside FM.
Hello, welcome back to returning visitors and welcome to new listeners. This is 1 year on. I'm Alison. And following on from episode 1, today's episode will be about my experiences in hospital when I had symptoms of stroke. I actually have quite good notes of my time in hospital because when I was able afterwards, I started typing the story of what happened to me. I entitled it, I Was Born Talking, and the joke's on me is that's what my mother used to say, I was born talking and I've never shut up. So going back into the story, I was recalling how I went to hospital. Andrew, my husband, took me there and told me to tell them, you've got aphasia. I had no idea what that meant at that point. He had to go to park in the multi-storey car park and I'd been dropped outside emergency. Going in, it was straightforward as the check-in desk was right beside the front door. The first person I spoke to, I think, was a nurse, and I was asked a variety of questions, one of which, who was the Prime Minister? Now, I know that it was Anthony Albanese. I could see his face in my head. I could hear his voice, and yet his name eluded me. Now, that isn't unusual for me, as I've always had a hard time remembering people's names. I can remember all the information that they've told me, but their names just seem to elude me. But this was different. The nurse was speaking to someone then, and they took me straight out the back right away in a wheelchair. I said, that's brilliant, but it's not really brilliant. To be taken out the back straight away means you're top of the triage, and it's pretty serious. Canberra Hospital is the main hospital in our city. It receives so much criticism, but I've always found it to be really good. You get the care that you need, even if you've got to wait. They triage people according to the seriousness of what your illness is, and that's all you can wish for. The staff there are working under extremely stressful conditions, and they have good humour, and the things they have to put up with are terrible. While I was there, I heard the staff being abused, being yelled at and sworn at. It really was appalling. I had a standard assessment done, bloods taken, urine test, COVID test, and a cannula was put in. My blood pressure hurt when it was taken. It was really painful. No wonder though, as my blood pressure was sky high. It was 190 over 130. Even now I can't even believe it was that high. It was so loud in there, I couldn't bear it, and kept my eyes shut as much as possible. I was sent for a CT scan and chest x-ray. The first porter who came to wheel me there was from overseas, and he apologised profusely for being on his phone. He explained that his father was terminally ill and was trying to go to him. That set me off because I'm an expat. I haven't seen my own family for over 6 years. It brought back how far I was away from my home of birth. Even being here in Australia for 26 years, I'm used to being away, but I just thought, gosh, here was this poor man having to work and organise the flight, and he was so concerned about me. I simply said that I understood. The nurse who came to see me whilst I was waiting outside the CT room saw me crying and thought I was crying about my own situation. And I was so overcome I couldn't explain that it was about him, not me, that I was crying. Back to ED department, I had an EEG monitor placed on me. That's an immense spaghetti junction of cables. You really have to have your wits about you to put one of those on. I must ask some of my nursing friends how they work it all out. The CT scan came back clear and the staff told me, oh, that's really good, they haven't found anything, but it still didn't explain what was going on. Later I was admitted for the night and taken up to the stroke wards, so they didn't yet know that I'd had a stroke, but I suppose they expected it. Something wasn't right with my brain though. Then when I got there, the nurse whispered to me, shh, I've just got her to sleep. I wasn't trying to make any noise. I was wheeled in beside the nurse's room, which was quite bright and near a shared bathroom. I worked out who my roommates were. I was the youngest. There was an elderly man who was asleep, a woman who vomited, and another woman who coughed. I don't sleep well anywhere else except my own bed, and in a room that's really quiet. So you can imagine with the light of the nurse's station, them coming and going, all the machines attached to me, I wasn't going to have a good night's sleep. And all those machines would disturb my roommates too. I tried to sleep, but the machine monitoring me was so sensitive that when my breathing slowed, which apparently is a necessary thing for going to sleep, it would alarm. My blood pressure cuff was going off several times in an hour, and I ended up waking up around 2 o'clock, but I thought it was 4. I needed to go to the bathroom, so I detached all the cables because they hadn't given me a call bill for them to come and do it. I don't think they like that. Whoops. When morning came, I was absolutely exhausted. My blood pressure remained sky high. I'd barely any sleep, and I was really hungry, having missed dinner the night before. I had to eat what was provided while the vomiting lady vomited. I felt really sorry for her. Oh my goodness. The specialist started doing their rounds about 7 or 8 in the morning, and a senior neurologist came to see me and asked me a range of basic questions. His assessment was, "You sound fine." And I thought that was quite funny, because I definitely wasn't. He intended for me to have an MRI scan done as an outpatient. The noise of the room was really disruptive, and I tried to drift off at various points, but it was impossible for me between the vomiting lady vomiting, her phone binging constantly, allied health people coming and going. I was visited by 3, a physio, an occupational therapist, and a speech pathologist. Each did tests. My strength in my body was fine. The physio liked that. The speech, he got me to do various things, some which I couldn't do and some which I could. I don't remember much about the occupational therapist's visit. I was taken for the MRI in the early afternoon and was prepared for that, as I've had them done before. I get terrible claustrophobia though, and the tech there was brilliant. She let me know how long each portion of the test would be, that they do the really important ones first, and that I could come out at any time. When I got back to my room, there was a new man there. He was very elderly, and his family had decided he had to receive last rites. That was really lovely that they were able to do that for him. I'm not Catholic, and I wasn't listening, but you can't help but hear when someone is only a few metres away from you. Later on, one of the young doctors from this morning's visit arrived back and reported that they had found the location of the stroke. It was in the basal ganglia. He apologised for the news, said that he could imagine this wasn't what I wanted to hear, but I was relieved that they'd found something that explained why I felt as I did. There was a lot happening in the room at this point, so I asked if I could go out of the room to the corridor, which was much quieter. It was there that he went through everything. He said I could have a medical certificate for work. I said, "Yep, that's fine. I'll be back to work on Monday. Just give me a few days on the medical certificate." I had no idea how badly the stroke would affect me, and he didn't argue with me. A beautiful stroke nurse came to see me next. She put a heart-bug monitor on me, which was to be there for a month. It looked like a little ladybird. It was round and had 2 connection points on my chest. She explained how to use the app that came with it and what I needed to do. She handed me a large package of information, some prescriptions, and then I went home. That is my 24-hour stay in hospital, and when I got home, I began my recovery. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. I'll be back next time to describe the first steps in my recovery and my visit with the speech pathologist, which was really confronting, because that's when I came face to face with my actual losses. Thank you.